Before last season, it was announced that there would be some new writers helming some of the episodes, instead of RTD or Moffat writing all of the episodes, like the last season. And I appreciate everything that both Russell T. Davies and Stephen Moffat have contributed to Doctor Who. Without these guys, we'd be still wandering in the wilderness. But the one thing we learned after the return of RTD, he needed to find some new writers. Not that the last season was awful, but the show needed fresh voices and someone to take the mantle when it either comes back from its long hiatus it's facing due to Disney and their own problems, or because Ncuti probably isn't staying around very long and RTD's carnival barking can only drum up so much interest. So when it was announced that there would be some new writers joining this season, I was very excited. Maybe not for adding Peter McTingle. I don't care how you really pronounce his last name. I mean, I use Amazon, but it sure feels weird having the Doctor approve of their employee abuse like she did in Kerblam, which was written by old Pete. But I was extremely interested that they tapped Nigerian poet Inua Elams to write an episode. If there was one area in culture Doctor Who has strayed pretty far away from, it's African cultures. And with Ncuti's father being Rwandan, I was very hopeful that we would get a rich exploration into the culture and storytelling of African heritage. And that's what we got. So why do I kind of feel underwhelmed? We start off with this insanely interesting presentation of a man telling a story of a fire that broke out in his village as a boy. The story plays out on a window as a moving African painting that is just gorgeous. In the story, the boy watches as the Doctor flies the TARDIS over the fire and puts it out. We see the man that is telling the story is doing so from a barber's chair as he gets a haircut and three men listen intently. When the story is over, the men all look over to a light in anticipation of it turning green. It does, and they're all relieved. The storyteller tells the men that the Doctor will come, and all of a sudden the light starts flashing red and everyone starts freaking out. On the TARDIS, Belinda reminds us all the overarching plot of the season, and the Doctor wants to try the doohickey in Lagos, Nigeria, because it has the largest communications market in Africa and because Omo's palace is there. The Doctor likes to hang out in his barbershop from time to time because he's black now, and they don't judge him like the whites. They land in 2019 and the Doctor gets a reading. Hey, how about you pop on over to China and stop that global pandemic that's about to hit instead of dicking around with a barbershop? Or is that conveniently a fixed point in time? Anyway, the Doctor explains about why the shop is important to him, and since Belinda is Indian but lives in England, she gets it. The Doctor says hi to a bunch of people when he makes it to where the shop is. He sees weird signs and missing person posters, one of which is Omo. He goes into the shop just as another one is finishing a story and the door closes and the alarms go off in the TARDIS. The Doctor hugs Omo and recognizes all the men in the room as men on the posters outside. Omo whispers to the Doctor that the shop is under new management. He means this gorgeously coiffed barber who won't let the men leave the shop because this is now like a roach motel. Once you go in, you don't come out. The red alarm goes off. This dude's hair regrows, and whatever the monster of the week is, it requires more stories. So another guy sits down for a cut and starts telling a pretty fun little ditty about Yo-Yo Ma and why Africans don't do appointments, and the Doctor sees the window animate the story that he's telling. The Doctor is as impressed as I am by this cool-ass window and tries it out, but gets told you have to be getting a haircut for it to work. The barber tells the Doctor he needs to tell a story soon because it's always hungry. The Doctor scans the area when a woman comes into the shop. This is Abby, and she can go back and forth because she's with the barber, but also gets food for the guys, so she's, I guess, not as much of an asshole. The Doctor recognizes her, but she dismisses him with a mouth smack. Abby knows the barber because he used to work for her father, but he was a dick and now they're traveling. By traveling, we mean that the whole shop is traveling and the stories are the fuel. Omo tells about when the barber came in and took over the shop and trapped most of his loyal customers. They all talk about what they left behind when they were abducted by the barber when the alarm goes off again and the doctor volunteers a story. He gets this weird electrical current when he sits down in the chair that seems to be painful. He tells a story about Belinda and when she figured out a diagnosis that a doctor couldn't for a nice lady and saved her. I don't know how he knew this story other than when he saw her entire life during the Paradox Wonka boat ride. Hey, I thought they would make a bigger deal about that than they have, but maybe this is finally the start of it. Oh, and the story is so powerful, it turns the window into a TV rather than a painting and fully powers the engine. The doctor's hair regrows, and Omo pleads with the barber to be let go because he led the doctor here. The barber and Abby go to the back, but she does something to the door that causes the TARDIS alarms to go off again, and Belinda asks where the doctor is. The TARDIS shows her the barbershop, and Belinda fumbles her way through the market to find him. Meanwhile, the doctor is pissed about the way Omo set him up. But I do have to ask, if a companion had done the same thing because they and their friends were in trouble, would the doctor be this pissed about it? I mean, this is what he does. He saves humanity and certainly gives preferential treatment to those that he really loves, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that he gets so mad at this point. Doctor, if you knew Omo was in trouble, you would have come anyway. He really didn't do anything except know you because how did he lead you to them? You're the one who brought the doohickey thing here in the first place and then wandered over to the shop. Nobody did shit, so calm the fuck down. Anyway, the doctor feels betrayed and decides to try leaving and finds out that they're traveling on the back of a spider across a very large web. It's kind of a neat thought, and the visual does an admirable job trying to make it look real, but if they had just done it as an animated painting, like they did with the story at the beginning, it probably would have looked better, and the visual would have fit the storytelling theme. Maybe not. Everyone probably would have called it pretentious, and I would have been the only one who liked it. Belinda goes down the alley and sees a space baby? While the barber explains to the doctor that the shop is both in Lagos and traveling on the back of the spider, which is the engine, and it is traveling across the Nexus, formerly known as the World Wide Web. This is accomplished by a time-space compressor in the doorway. Belinda comes in, nobody even warns her not to close the door, and now she's trapped too. Way to go, everybody. Abby starts to get sarcastic about Belinda being the doctor's companion, like she knows about it, and the doctor goads the barber into telling who he is. He claims to be all the gods of mythology, like all of them. And the doctor and Belinda laugh at him because the doctor has hung out with the gods he claims to be, and he knows that he isn't them. The doctor goads him again into telling him who the barber really is, and he finally tells the truth. He was the guy that used to tell stories about the gods and gave the gods power by having people believing them, which sounds like a very recent Thor movie that nobody liked, and the barber was cast out because they didn't need him anymore. So now he built this giant web from strands of god hair and is on his way to overthrowing them and becoming king. The engine stops because it burned up too much energy when the doctor opened the door, and he remembers who Abby actually is. She's the daughter of the god Abenak, and the doctor met her when he was the Fugitive Doctor and somehow remembers this. The barber wants another story to get moving, but the doctor points out that the barber doesn't want to just reign supreme, he wants to kill all of the gods. Abby gets kind of freaked out about it since her dad will die. The alarm keeps going off and the shop patrons force the doctor into the barber's chair, and Abby says she will tell a story. We enter into the very best part of this episode where Abby tells the story of how slaves would weave maps to freedom into their hair because their masters didn't check the hair. The doctor does look pretty fantastic with the map to the barber's control room weaved into his hair, and the doctor uses the sonic to cause a distraction and make his way through the labyrinth hallway. He's able to do this because of Abby's map and gets to the creepy brain thing that has a glowing heart in the middle. The doctor tells Belinda to start ripping out the wires while the doctor does something to the flow of power with the sonic. The barber comes in pretty pissed off. The doctor starts talking about Hemingway and the shortest story ever told, which feels really out of the blue for a story about Africa and gods, but the doctor's shortest story is 6 words. I'm born, I die, I'm born. Hemingway's was supposedly for sale, baby shoes, never worn, which is pretty f***ing dark. Anyway, this overloads the system because I guess the Doctor was able to do something to the flow of power in the extremely short amount of time that he has to do it, because his story overloads everything and we see all the old Doctors. I always love this so much. Though it doesn't really do much for the story, I still get excited about seeing them with the big swell of music, and I hate myself because I'm simple! Anyway, the Doctor is going to let the engine explode out to space, with them in it if the Doctor doesn't stop this S. So the barber relents, everyone is able to leave the shop, the Doctor convinces the barber to live a normal life and give up the god hunting, and they both jump out of the shop before it explodes. For reasons that really amount to, we need something more than just the Doctor and the barber escaping the building, the Doctor sonics the escaping spider and everyone is safe. Everyone is happy, these dudes have a weird bow to Abby, and the Doctor makes sure the barber is forgiven for kidnapping several grown adults. Omo and the Doctor make up, and Omo goes into business with the barber, and everyone has the f***ing longest goodbye ever. Fuck, okay, we get it. Everyone loves each other, and it's all forgiven. Let's go! And Abby forgives the barber. Belinda reminds us that there was a space baby in this episode, and the Doctor explains stories were leaking out, and the end. Well, that was interesting. Let's dive deeper with the things that I liked. I liked this exploration into the Doctor's skin color way more than Dot and Bubble. Like I said in my review of that episode, Dot and Bubble was written for white people by white people. The ending was a gotcha, and it worked the first time you see it, if you're a white person, to shock you by how subtle racism can be. But the simple way that the Doctor and Belinda explain what it feels like to be judged at all times and how exhausting it must be was so much more powerful. I know it doesn't resonate in the way the shock and awe of Ncuti's reaction and Dot and Bubble communicated the frustration of the moment, but to me this felt much more real. No, it's unlikely to change any minds of those that are pretty much going to suck no matter what, but for the reasonable person, the constant struggle of having to be a certain way to be accepted, or not be stared at like you're gonna commit a crime all the time, or just to feel normal because you're not seen as different by those around you, felt more real to me. As one of the aforementioned whites, sometimes we do this unconsciously or consciously, and it affects good people. And I think that this resonates better than a sermon. I loved the setting. I loved the barbershop, the awesome way the stories were represented on the window, although I wish the story about Belinda was done in the same painting style, but there's only so much Disney money, and how would they have afforded Toxic? The setting, the fantastic cast, the exploration of African and Black culture, it was great, and something I wish Doctor Who would lean more into. I love the historical episodes of Doctor Who, and while this wasn't one of them, it did the thing that historical episodes lend themselves to, and that is the opportunity to explore different cultures. And while the show with this kind of history has some hits and misses with its portrayal of different cultures throughout time, this study of African and Black culture, myths and storytelling, and the history credit for some great accomplishments being taken away from cultures that actually deserve the credit was really well done. And sure, I saw some of the complaints about the human rights problems that Nigeria has, especially since the Doctor is presenting gay with this iteration. But honestly, one thing at a time, guys. I know we all want everything to align with our worldview at all times, otherwise we're gonna bitch, but that is never going to happen, and some positive steps in the right direction for a show that has historically not been that great with diversity is progress for me. I liked this scene where the barber reveals who he is, and as he's doing so, he's cutting his own hair. Aside from the striking visual and the intensity of the actor doing this and making the story seem so much more interesting, I loved the continuity of it, because every time they tell a story in this episode, somebody is either cutting hair or styling hair. So even as the barber tells his story or Abby tells her, there's always a haircut or styling going on. It was cool. Things I didn't like. I have liked Belinda up to now, but she's incredibly useless in this episode. I thought she was going to be a bit more argumentative with the doctor, or at least that's what was sold to me. But ever since that weird moment in the robot revolution where she got cranky about the non-invasive, he does it to everyone and everything, so why are we pointing it out now sonic scan, she seems to go right along with anything he says without much pushback, aside from a throwaway line once an episode about how he needs to get her home. What does she even do in this episode? The doctor looks all excited that she made it into the shop when she shows up, like he's been waiting for her because she's the key to getting out of this mess. But she doesn't do a damn thing aside from pull some wires on that brain heart thing, which the barber claims didn't do anything anyway. I get it, not every episode needs the companion to be an important part of it, but her character in this episode felt a bit like how Chibnall wrote his companions. Just planks of wood. Just there. A little pushback on the fact that the doctor feels like he needs to go fuck around in a barbershop after you've already been shot in the heart since traveling with him would have been nice. It felt like all of the elements that make a Doctor Who episode brought this episode down. It was as if they took two flavors that sounded really interesting and put them together, and they just didn't taste right. I get that people didn't like the inclusion of gods into this because of the pantheon, but I don't think that these gods equal those gods. And it's fine if they don't, but the problem is that you've spent so much time on the pantheon gods that it just gets confusing when you bring up these mythical gods. Because Sutekh actually is a mythical Egyptian god, and the Morrow is one too, only in Buddhist culture, so when you bring these ones in and casually mention the Doctor watches Marvel movies with him, it doesn't really make much sense and it's confusing. The inclusion of the Fugitive Doctor was really odd to me as well, because I've even read in interviews that RTD included her just because she's black. Like, man, she's really cool, and there's so much more that we didn't get about her incarnation that if you're just going to bring her back, why not do so with an episode that helps us understand her character? Belinda was wasted and nothing was advanced in the season mysteries, which again is fine, but we only have 8 episodes. And if you want me to be fully invested in these things come the finale, you need to make the season arc pretty meaty throughout. And when we found out who Gore the God-barber was, my interest just started to pack up and leave because of all the bad Doctor Who stuff. Things I didn't understand.
What?
So the Doctor wants to try the Vindicator in Lagos because it has the largest communication market in Africa. What? The doohickey Vindicator thing acts as a sort of fishing rod to hook the exact date the Doctor is wanting to go to. Now, I'm lazy and just going off memory here, so if I didn't do my research and that bothers you, feel free to join the support group of all my ex-teachers from high school. But I don't remember the doohickey thing needing communications to get a better reading of where they are wanting to go. In fact, the other times that they have used it were at 2 a.m. in Miami, Florida when nobody was outside talking, an abandoned Dead Star with all of 14 people on it and the Midnight Entity, and an alleyway on New Year's Eve in 2007. In each of these scenarios, you indicate that you're getting a satisfactory reading and have not mentioned that a lot of communication or talking is required. So that makes me think you sort of lied to Belinda, who's now been with you for some time and is still pretty freaked out about going home. And who can blame her now that she's been shot through the heart and lived through it, in addition to the cartoon god and the incel planet that she was queen for a day of. Like, bro, sorry you miss your friend, but it's sort of weird timing for you to be jonesing for some black companionship when you fear Earth has been destroyed in 2025 and you've been tasked with taking her home. I don't understand why the Doctor is able to remember Abby if he met her when he was the Fugitive Doctor. Before we go down this road again, here's my position. I hate The Timeless Child. I don't understand a lot about the Fugitive Doctor, but I like Joe Martin's portrayal. But I get it, the Fugitive Doctor is a thing now and I just need to accept it. But a few questions. You say you recognize Abby, but the last time you saw her was when you left her when you were the fugitive. But you don't remember ever being the fugitive because all of your memories of those times are now in the fob watch that you threw down the TARDIS hole. So unless you fished it out and opened it up off camera, you shouldn't remember anything about her face. And if you did open it up off camera, you then say in this very episode that you've never been black before, but you damn well have. Not just as the fugitive, but as the little fucking girl that Tectayun picked up at the Dimension Shimmer thing. Your line only works if you don't remember any of that. I don't understand why Belinda laughed about the barber claiming to be all the gods. Unless we're about to get 1,000 Big Finish stories about all the travels the Doctor and Belinda have been on that we haven't seen yet, so many that even being super casual about mythological gods gives her the giggles because she knows them so well. As far as I know, the only god she has seen is the pantheon god of light that ended up being a cartoon that was defeated by more light. At least this guy doesn't know why he's laughing. Maybe Belinda doesn't either. You know I like to nitpick, so why are you trying to stop me? You go sit in Nitpick Corner! Wait, Belinda just casually wonders why the Doctor wants to go to a barbershop because, as she asks him, the TARDIS cuts his hair? Okay. We need a full episode of this stat. I need to see the mechanics of how this happens. Does the TARDIS have a barbershop room? Does it have a barber? If so, how is that barber paid, or is that barber a Time Lord? Or is it like when Thor got his haircut? Has Belinda watched this process? And is this something that most companions have seen? Or does it work like we speculated the changing of the clothes works? You go in one door and you come out another. Look, you can't just drop a bomb like this and expect me not to ruminate on it. Thanks a lot, Doctor Who. Now every time I see that the Doctor has a fresh haircut, I'm gonna think about the logistics, and I don't need that in my life. The mystery continues. It's time for another clue about who the fuck is Flood? Oh, there she is. This has been another edition of Who the Fuck is Mrs. Flood? This one was very interesting to me. There's a ton that I really liked. I liked the culture, I liked the different take from a different writer, some interesting visuals, a great supporting cast, but the problems that I had with this episode really come down to the Doctor Who elements rather than the African elements that I wanted more of. Or at least more seamless integration with the typical Doctor Who stuff. This was kind of a flip-flop of the Legend of Ruby Sunday for me. In that episode, the kick-ass ending reveal and tension overcame the boring parts. In this, the kick-ass interesting first half overcomes the predictable boring ending. In one episode, I walk away forgetting the bad parts, in the other, not as much, but still, this was fun and something I hope they get right in the future. A little more seasoning on these flavors, and we'll have a memorable meal. Plus, my meal came with a space baby, and I didn't order that. I give the story and the engine a 6. Honestly, it's probably a 5.5, but we don't do and a halves here. The barber's glorious hair gave it a bump. Now, we're behind due to my illness and because of life deciding that it needed to step in with my time-consuming hobby, but I'm looking forward to getting these things out and completed. It's been a lot of fun challenging myself to be faster with these reviews, and I think it's helped me to improve a bit, but no matter how long it takes, I am coming with new videos as soon as I am able. Once the season's over, likely we're going to go back to the every 2 weeks versus reviews, and I intend to get in on some classics and take some requests. We may even add in some analysis on the odd week as well. Maybe even break some news. Who knows? Why don't you like? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you comment? And as always, get your ham off of me, you salty, dirty ape. Are you guys really seriously telling me there is a time-space compressor inside this doorway of the barbershop and the Sonic didn't detect it? Is it made of wood or something inside this doorway? Because I'm having trouble understanding how it is that some kind of tangible technology made by what used to be a human is not being pointed out by the magic MacGuffin that has just recently been seen scanning human DNA, recalibrating a time doorway, and teleporting living beings.